So let's talk about something that's very, very important, especially with respect to persuasion and especially with respect to building business relationships and also the way you make sales, namely language and the way you use it and the way you use it to influence people and those around you and the way you convey a message and the way you attempt to influence people to make them do whatever you want. I'll give you an example. And this is kind of a hot topic at the moment because I see it being discussed elsewhere, or excuse me, everywhere. And the proponents of what I'm going to say are very, very firm in their stance, and their counterparts are also very, very firm in their opposite stance. And it seems like either party can't really come to an agreement. They can't really come to a mutual understanding. Instead, they're using language, and instead they're using their ways to persuade and attempt to omit the truth and twist the truth and change things, moving goalposts, and even outright lie about stuff. So here's where I'm going with this. I'm talking about red meat and the connection to cancer. Now, full disclosure, just before I begin, I belong to the camp that doesn't believe that red meat in and of itself is dangerous, nor do I believe that it leads to any sort of increased risk of getting cancer. And I'm happy to say that I eat a lot of red meat, pretty much every single day. So here's where I'm going with this, and I want you to pay close attention to what I'm saying here. Red meat, or excuse me, let me begin again. Red processed meats are bad for you. Products that are manufactured where the original contents of the foods and the foodstuffs have been altered in such a way that it causes the growth of potential canceriferous substances and the like must be avoided. So therefore, you shouldn't eat sausages, ham, processed red meats, and so on. So that's why you should avoid red meats altogether, because red meats cause cancer. Do you hear what I just did? First, I talked about processed red meats, which probably could increase the likelihood of getting cancer. Processed red meats such as bacon, industrialized bacons or bacon, ham, sausage, and the like. But processed red meats are different to whole foods-based red meats, such as beef, steak, sirloin, tenderloin, pork chops, and so on. Those are red meats, but they're not red processed meats. And they don't connect to, and they're not linked necessarily to cancer. Are you telling me that the nice juicy steak that I'm eating, literally the muscles and the proteins of an animal, are connected to cancer when we know that people have been eating such foods for years and years? Don't be ridiculing me. Now, do you pay attention to what I just did? Like I said, I started out by talking about red processed meats, and then I switched over to red meats, because if you lump if you lump together whole foods based red meats and processed meats under the umbrella that's called red meats, then the suggestion that red meats can cause cancer is true, because under the umbrella term red meats are red processed meats and red whole foods based meats. So that's why red meats necessarily equal an increased risk of cancer. Do you see how I'm twisting the truth and playing with semantics here? This is playing with semantics. This is playing with statistics. And this is altering the truth dramatically because it's simply not true. Here's another thing that these proponents who are against red meats pretty much all the time fail to mention, is that people who eat red meats, especially red processed meats, such as the sausages, the industrialized bacons, the hams, and the other processed meat products, oftentimes eat unhealthy other foods like processed carbohydrate filled foods, sugar, and other industrialized foods, other ultra-processed foods. And they also have a poor lifestyle. So what I'm saying essentially is, and pay close attention to what I'm saying now. If I'm a lazy person who doesn't eat, doesn't train at all, sits on my ass all day long, I drink Coca-Cola, I drink Pepsi, I drink other sugarized drinks or beverages. I consume a lot of cake, cookies, chocolate, other sorts of candy, and I also eat tacos, pizza, hamburgers, fries, you name it, anything. Then by extension, whenever I'm having a taco, whenever I'm having a pizza, whenever I'm having a burger, whenever I'm having a hot dog and fries, I'm also having red processed meats. And if you include the umbrella term, red meats, because it equals both, because the umbrella term red meats encompasses both processed meats and whole food based meats, then by extension, because I'm living this unhealthy lifestyle and I'm eating these unhealthy foods, then I'm eating red meats. And that's why the red meats are part of the contribution of giving me cancer. But that's not true, because it's not the red meats in and of themselves that cause the cancer. It's probably the massive accumulation of sugar, processed carbohydrates, pastries, all the starch, all that other crap that they put in the industrialized foods, which trigger insulin responses, which increases the likelihood of log jams, free radicals in the blood veins, and which potentially down the line could cause artery cloggings. I'm not some sort of a medical professional, so I'm not going to sit around and lecture you and pretend that I know anything about sugar and processed carbohydrates, but this is what the literature has taught me, and this is what my experience has taught me. Also, if you think about it, you probably have heard or you know about people who are on the carnivore diet. They eat steak and eggs pretty much every single day, or red meat, red whole foods-based meat, such as ground beef, pork chops, steak, sirloin, whatever, and eggs. Do you think these people actually are getting cancer? No, of course not. They're not getting cancer. Because they're healthy, because they're otherwise healthy, because every single study that the camp that's against red meats are quoting includes lazy people who otherwise have a poor diet and a poor lifestyle, who happen to frequently eat red processed meats and also the occasional steak. So by extension, because we're playing with semantics, and also because we're twisting the truth and omitting important information that would otherwise work counter to the argument, then we are persuading and influencing people to believe that red meats are bad for you, which they're not, in my very, very biased opinion, and my very, very non-medical opinion, yet in my very, very experienced opinion. Because guess what? I used to be obese. I used to be fat. I'm 5'11". I used to weigh a whopping 260 pounds. Now I walk around at a regular 175 to 180-ish pounds, give or take. I'm happy, I'm healthy. I'm in very good shape for a 40-year-old. And I'm in tremendously better shape than I was 10 years ago, when I was fat, obese, and ate a lot of processed foods. And I also believe those lies that red meats are bad for you. So do you see how playing with words, how twisting the truth can adjust the whole message? If you lump together the assumption that, if you lump together the definition of red meats to be whole foods-based meats and processed meats, and you call them the umbrella term red meats, then by extension, linguistical and semantical extension, red meats must also include processed red meats. Therefore, whenever I'm having a sausage and a ham or bacon, then I'm by definition eating red meat, even though we know that I'm not eating a whole foods based red meat diet, which is wrong. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are plenty of other ways that you could persuade and lie and trick and con people. But let this just be let this just be sort of an introduction about how you can play with language and with words and with statistics. I'm going to quote briefly something that my statistics teacher or professor at the university said very, very briefly. If you torture data for long enough, they will confess. Just think about that when it comes to statistics. So don't believe the statistics for one single study, because they oftentimes lie. So getting back to the whole core point, when you twist and when you change the definition of something, and you extend the definition of something to include something that's bad, then you can also say that actual thing or item or whatever it is can cause harm. Like in this case, red meats are bad for you because they can cause cancer, because some people eat a lot of sausage and ham and also pizza, tacos and burgers and chips and cake and cookies and have a lazy lifestyle with a high insulin level and who are overweight could develop cancer, which is a very skewed impression of what red meats actually mean. So think about that. That's a way of influencing people and persuading people in a bad way, so-called dark persuasion. Now, if you want to learn more about persuasion and sales and energy transfers, and also how millionaires and entrepreneurs and other business leaders use persuasion to make more money and to improve their lives, to get more, then get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description wherever you are watching and or listening to this, and I'll see you there.